Well, what do you know? On my day off,
Zos breaks silence on ESO combat changes. Deltia Gaming, let's go. I love Deltia Gaming. I used to follow all of his guides for Templar. Nothing more to say. I just want to know what the changes are. If the combat becomes smoother, if what's it called, Cyrodiil becomes less leggy, I think that would be the third MRPG I play. And honestly, would be my second, because once I'm done with the WoW, the alt challenge, I'll probably not play Dragonflight ever again.
Elder Scrolls Online finally
Loot sucks.
Q&A that was supposed to happen in update 35. Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from DeltiasGaming.com. I'm going to show you this, go over it, and give you my reaction on Zos finally addressing a huge concern in the community. What's going on with combat at update 35 and beyond? Where are we headed? And why are you making the changes? We got some answers. So here we have it. This is from Brian Wheeler, PvP in Combat Lead, coming from the horse's mouth, going over the exact details. Link in the description below if you want to read this in your entirety. I'm going to scroll down here and read and give you my reaction to each little particular part of this. And some of it is actually pretty good. Today, we'd like to share with you our goals and core values of ESO's combat system. First, we'd like to address the combat Q&A we mentioned a few months ago. Now, if you've been paying attention to my channel, I've always referenced this.
Always do that.
Blurry image. But this was back in August.
There we go.
Essentially what had happened is Update 35 rewrote a lot of the core combat rules, a lot of nerfs, a lot of buffs, and it came out of nowhere. Anyways, Sauce communicated back in August they were going to do a Q&A. Basically go over why did they make these changes? Where is this coming from? And they never followed up on this. This has been a huge point of contention with me as y'all say you're going to do something but never follow up on it. So, a little bit late, but better late than never. That's where. I mean,
don't we have a bunch of like still broken promises by Blizzard? I mean, they're not broken promises because they never gave us a timeline when it will be ready. But, you know, there's certain promises that just never happen. I mean, there are broken promises regarding certain systems, yeah.
To the post, as we were reading over your combat questions, it became apparent that we could better communicate to you all of our vision and core values for combat. Most answers to the combat-related questions of why, which is what I always wanted to know, we have gotten over the past few months are grounded in these core values. We wanted to take a step back and overview these to help shed light on our long-term vision for combat in the Elder Scrolls Online, which we recognize we should have shared with everyone much sooner. So this initial paragraph kind of butters us up to, hey, what is our principles? What do we have a vision for, and where are we going with this in the future? Next paragraph. So what is our vision for ESO combat in a nutshell? We want combat to feel fun and rewarding to all players. We have a wide variety of players with unique interests and motivation for playing, so we recognize that what feels fun and rewarding is a little different for everyone. Our goal is to strike a good balance, and just like our community has evolved over time, so has the needs to address things that didn't align with our core combat values. It's also worth noting that these values are aspirational, not hard rules or a define of the current reality. They are values to which we aspire with combat design and what we strive to meet when considering adjustments to combat in ESO. What I take away from this paragraph is they continue to say wide audience. What that means is a lot of folks are coming in from Skyrim. In fact, everyone in the stream usually says, yeah, I was playing Skyrim and I wanted Skyrim friends. In that game, the combat is really not the emphasis of the game, right? It's environment. You'll see a lot of people in random dungeons just sitting there doing light attacks or heavy attacks because, frankly, that's mostly what you did in Skyrim. And so I think they're catering to the wide audience, meaning not the one person who is really, really good at combat and parses 120,000 DPS. The game is not made for that individual. And this game is quite complex, which we're going to get to a little bit later, because it's not just managing a 1.5 second cooldown. You have movement, you have dodge, you have your resource management, you can heal yourself, even as a DPS. That's what always appealed to me as Elder Scrolls Online. So
I like this is the funnest part about ESOs. You really build your character the way you want to. You want to be just a nuke. You can put up on all the damage buffs and just go out of stealth, charge someone and nuke them down. But if you don't manage to kill them, they will probably kill you. But you can also play a mix where you have like your semi-tanky, like with survivability. You have blinks, teleports. You have self-heals, like all the shit that you can implement into your kit, right? Because you have 10 abilities that you choose from, like 5 and then switch weapon 5. Or if you use the ring, it's only 5 without switching weapons. But I always found that to be fun in ESO. In my opinion, the problem... the balance is an issue, but like the main reason why I didn't enjoy ESO so much is because the combat doesn't feel good, not because the variety of the combat doesn't feel good, if you know what I mean, right? It's like all the combination of skills you can do, that's fantastic. However, the way it plays just doesn't feel good to me.
I think they have tuned the game for a wider audience, meaning not the 1%er who just lives for high DPS parse numbers or to basically 1vx in PvP.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with that or not, they're telling us the truth. That's who it's intended for. The wider audience that just enjoys the game with maybe a little less emphasis on being the best player out there. Moving along. So with that said, we like to
basically for the, you know, what do you call them? The... Wow. Not normies. I mean, it is normies, but like, what's the other word? Casuals. It's built for the casuals. That's what MMOs are for. They're mostly for casuals, for escapism. If you want to go hardcore and stuff, that's fine, but it's like, that's not really what these games are for you. And every game that tried to make a game for the hardcores failed. Wildstar, hello.
Present the core values and vision for ESO combat, which also includes examples of where these values manifest themselves in combat. Play the way you want. We strive to provide freedom and flexibility that allow you to transform your character fantasy into a gameplay reality. We value diversity of choice and play styles with abilities, weapons, and armor. Some combinations of these tools are more effective than others, but every character should have the capacity to protect their group, and allies, or devastate foes. Wear any combination of light, medium, and heavy armor, slot abilities from any skill line you've discovered, quote-unquote deck building through a selection of abilities, items, champion points, etc. Now, my take on this particular...
That philosophy of like the deck building of your character, I feel like that is the most RPG thing in any MMORPG I've played. This is by far more RPG than Final Fantasy. The way Final Fantasy kind of does it is that you have set kits. It's like, if we, let's talk about this like in terms of decks. Final Fantasy is you have how many jobs? 14 jobs, 16 jobs, I don't remember. Let's say 15 jobs. You have 15 preset decks, right? However, in ESO, you have... Okay, so let's do this. Final Fantasy is like this. You have 15 decks that are like set. WoW is like you have preset decks, but it has extra cards that you can kind of replace. Okay, let's say it like that, right? So for example, you have a deck only has 50 cards, but you have 70 cards. So you can kind of change the deck. What ESO does, it gives you 1,000 cards and tells you, make your deck. The deck can only be 50 cards, but you have 1,000 cards to play with to make your deck. And I love that a lot more in ESO than any other MMORPG. It's a lot less restrictive. I still wish they didn't have a class at all. I wish all the abilities were, you know, you start as just a nobody and you decide the class as you go. I love that the most. It gives you the most options possible. But again, sometimes having too many options can also be detrimental to a game. So I kind of understand it. Right now, though, I feel like only having 3 trees with skills preset, and then you have fucking like, I don't know, 12 to 20 other skill trees that you can just play with and choose from. I feel like that's really, really good.
Paragraph is the hybridization over the past 2022 has seen some good impact.
Also,
I would say
aside from like the mount skills, ESO is by far the most alt-friendly game out there. And also, there's never an increase in item level because once you reach the max, that's it. You reach the max. You can make your gear like gold and stuff like that. Yeah, but that's the cap. It never goes up. You never level up more. So in that regard, you can easily take another character, level up to max level, and boom, you're ready to go. You can transfer all your gear across your characters. ESO is my ideal for an alt-friendly game. Final Fantasy is not alt-friendly. Final Fantasy is one job do all, like one character class do all. That's not alt-friendly. If you make an alt, you're kind of fucked, right? What do alts give you? They let you play certain content that is like, let's say, weekly locked multiple times, right? WoW allows you to do that. For example, Final Fantasy doesn't allow you to do that really. Like, to level another character is like months, you know, like 2 months to get like another new brand character to go through all the MSQ and then to unlock the chain for like the raids you want to do and stuff like that. And you're weekly locked, right? It's like you can't just keep doing normal and get gear, right? So that is a problem. So for example, what I would want to do, for example, in Final Fantasy, if I want to get gear for multiple jobs, I can't, because I'm weekly locked to one loot in normal, for example. In Savage, also one loot per roll. But, okay, I cleared this on my Gunbreaker. I won't do it on my, Dragoon. Well, I don't have the gear because I can't bring the gear to the Dragoon. But if I have an alt that is a Dragoon, like a different class that is a Dragoon, I could do it on a Dragoon and I could get him gear specifically, right? So Final Fantasy is really alt unfriendly. WoW is kind of a mix. It's kind of alt friendlier, but it's not really alt friendly. I'm working on the project. ESO is by far the most alt friendly game right now in terms of MMORPGs.
Bad is at the top end, PvE specifically, almost everyone's playing the exact same build with very little class identity. Most people are using goofy Fighters Guild main spammable, leaning on medium armor and not using a whole lot of magic, playing primarily melee range. That doesn't mean that you can't, or you can not play magic, or you cannot use a bow, whatever. But the game incentivizes you based on the passives, the armor choices, and the weapons, along with the skills, to play one specific way.
Yeah, like the balance is not great. Yes, like that doesn't counter my point though. The balance is shit, but you do have the option, okay?
Now, what I will say though, the positive is for the hybridization and even starting new characters, I see this. The game is way less punishing for a person that doesn't know the meta, skill, morph, ability, race, whatever. In the past, it was way more punishing if you took a magic-based morph as a stam user, or if you took a stam-based morph as a magic user. That skill would be terribly ineffective. Now, it's actually really effective. And so you see the hybridization, which means most people are leaning on stamina, but using a lot of magic abilities. But as a beginner player, or someone who's new that doesn't research all this and know all the skills, it is a lot less punishing. So again, they're going with the larger scale approach versus the top 1%er. The downside of this is you're going to get some homogenization, the removal of class identity, and pigeonhole basically everyone to playing one.
Fuck class identity, man. I hate class identity. I want my identity. I don't want class identity. I want a character that I built to identify with how I want to play. This whole class identity bullshit, I'm not saying it needs to die, but there needs to be an option not to have it. Okay? WoW is really focused on class identity. Final Fantasy is really focused on class identity, right? So, well, play your class how you want to, but you're limited to whatever is limited in the class. Or Final Fantasy is like, this is the class and you play it, right? I'm not complaining about it. Like, I feel like it works for those games, but I want a game that has no class identity and you just fucking play. Give me, like, for example, make another WoW parallel version, WoW Ascension, basically, but of the same patch and has no class identities, and see what people come up with. That would be cool. Final Fantasy, same thing. ESO, same thing. ESO is the closest, but yeah, I fucking hate class identity, man. It just ruins. I have an idea in my head what a Paladin Templar is. What a Paladin should be. I have an idea in my head of what it is. And World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy and ESO don't quite capture that. Templar in ESO, in my opinion, is the closest I had to like what a Templar is, like what a Paladin for me is, but it's still not it. And I love that I can play with certain things to make it a bit closer to it. but like it's still not exactly it, you know? There's some abilities that I would rather have on a paladin that you can't have in ESO. In WoW, you don't have it at all, and in Final Fantasy, you really don't have it at all as well. Like what my idea of a paladin is, right? So yeah, I love not having class identity because everyone has their own identity of what it is. Like some people see a warrior as a berserker. Some people see a warrior as something closer to a paladin without holy power, just a protector. Some people see a warrior as just like this one guy carrying this one massive sword, a slayer, you know, like a like somebody who hunts dragons. Right? Everyone has their own class identity. Right, some people see a rogue as like, you know, like a bandit, a thief, a brigand. Some people see a rogue as like a ninja. Some people see a rogue as like a fucking like mix ranged and melee. Right, like it really changes based on your perception of what you think it is. So yeah,
one specific way at endgame if you want to play optimal. Now you can play suboptimal, get away with it, little bit different skills and weapons and so forth, but it's really emphasized, hey, play this specific way. Moving along to active combat. Yep. We believe combat is more engaging when you're on the move and continuously taking actions.
100%.
Battles should be exhilarating with threats and opportunities coming fast. You feel empowered to respond in kind.
Yes.
At any given moment, you should have options for reacting to your opponents and shouldn't be held back by long waits between actions.
Yes.
This requires controls to be responsive, lag, and consistent so you feel connected to your character and in control of the outcomes of your battle. For example, block, roll dodge, bash, interrupt are not constrained by global cooldowns. No ability cooldowns and a short global cooldown. Most abilities are instanced with cast times being the exception and weapon swapping. So what does this mean? Well, their core value is the combat is a blast in the Elder Scrolls Online. Unlike other games, specifically tab target games, it's really hard for me to go back and play a World of Warcraft style game.
Yeah, I agree, man. The combat in ESO, aside from it not feeling smooth, is just such a better iteration, man. It's not pure action. It's not really tab targeting, but it's not pure action. You never are cluttered with monsters because it's not an ARPG game. It's an MMORPG. You're always able to kind of pick your target without needing tab targeting. Meanwhile, in WoW, you can gather like so many mobs. Good luck figuring out which one you're trying to target. Fucking, you know, like UI is just not good for targeting specific targets, right? In ESO, it's a lot easier. It's never like that cluttered. And even if it is, it's usually small mobs that you don't really need to focus. But the ones you really do are more highlighted. They're bigger usually. Like it's easier to focus on them. Yeah, it's just so much better. Like I just love ESO so much more in terms of a game for like action, for like just the combat in it, except that it just doesn't feel good because it's so clunky. And Guild Wars has a very similar system, but it's even clunkier, and I hate Guild Wars 2 combat system. Not hate is a strong word, but it's like it's really uncomfortable.
The global cooldown is quite long, and I can't dodge, I can't bash, and I love those mechanics. In fact, Elder Scrolls Online combat becomes a little bit about managing your cooldowns, like specifically damage over time, heals over time. You got to pay attention to those. But it becomes a lot more about movements, instincts, reacting, and then managing your resource pools, right? So in PvP, you have basically 2 heals is what I normally use. I got Vigor, I got a Burst heal. So I'm constantly looking at my resource pools and going, I have 2 pools to pick from. They're not on any cooldowns, so I can use them, spam them over and over if I want. But the smart play is to kind of manage your resources and look. And this is core to their value. They want the combat to be snappy, to constantly be moving, and not just being stationary. And for me, that's one of the things that keeps coming back to this specific game is I love the diversity in the characters and the play styles, picking something up. And it just
by the way, just because they want you to play that way, in my opinion, they don't really force you to play that way. There's a lot of just like caster builds where you're just stationary and just fucking nuke shit. They're not ideal. They used to be. They're not ideal now, as far as I know. It depends on the meta. But you could be a Templar and just like fucking send the back and just fucking shoot shit, like shoot fucking spells at people and burn them alive and all that stuff from way far back. Not saying this is the ideal, but you have the option still. Obviously, they can balance everything. It's like you really play how you want. That's fucking fantastic. I personally love the fucking charges. I love charging into people and then disappearing.
Feels rewarding the combat. Now, some classes more so than others, especially right now, Templar, you know who you are. The lack of a global cooldown on abilities, the fact that most of them are instance and not channel based, and I don't have 30 abilities to pick from, and managing a bunch of them that are 2-3 minute timers is why I love the combat in Elder Scrolls Online. And that's core to their principles, and I'm glad they're sticking to it. Next up is Mastery. Whether you've played for 10 minutes or 1,000 hours, there should always be something to learn to or improve upon. The loop of learning should be consistently fun and rewarding. Our combat is designed to challenge you along 2 primary paths: character building and skillful execution. Outside of combat, your character build should test your ability to refine a large number of choices into a proficient engine for battle. Tests of skillful execution occur during battles, challenging you to realize the potential of your build and outperform opponents in fast-paced active combat. And then some bullet points here. Builds consist of combinations of abilities, items, and champion points, real-time resource management, health, magic, stamina, ultimate, optimizing ability rotation and timing, light attack weaving, group builds, and synergies. Kind of more to the point here, and my reaction on this is, it's basically what I've just said, is that this,
nothing,
the combat in Elder Scrolls Online is almost impossible to master. I love the PvP element of the game because it's a lot more instincts. PvE is really about fine-tuning your timing, knowing the property ability to use and when, light attack weaving, syncing up your ability cooldown with your light attack cooldown, and it's almost impossible to actually master that. You'll see a few people online like Skinny Cheeks and others that are parsing these huge, massive numbers, but you don't see the hard work they put in behind the scenes.
Oh yeah,
just beating on parse dummies for hours and hours.
Oh my god, bro! I tried. Like, I went on the parse dummy one time, bro, and I was like, oh nice. I was like 40 or 60k DPS, and I was like, damn. And then I look at this another video. Someone who has the exact same gear. I'm following his guide on the rotation, everything to the T. He's doing like twice my DPS. I was like, how the fuck, man? Yeah, they're just like so much better at it. Right, just like weaving attacks in between and all that shit. Just like, I understand the rotation in my head, but it's like actually acting it out. It's not just like ability spam like it is in WoW or Final Fantasy. It's not like a Final Fantasy is like a piano lesson that you just like ability into, sorry, weapon skill, weapon skill ability, weapon skill ability, weapon skill ability, you know, like that's Final Fantasy. Meanwhile, and then it's like in World of Warcraft, it's like ability, proc, ability, proc, right? And in ESO, no such thing. There are no procs. Everything's under your control, but it's like the skill required to actually get the damage. Oh my god, man, it's crazy.
Hours and hours to get that level of proficiency, and it's amazing. But remember, the game and the content in this game isn't meant for the 130,000 parse warrior out there. It's meant for you and I, the average player, and the ability to basically never master it or even get...
I don't know if I can call Deltia an average player, you know? I mean, I wouldn't say he's like the best of the best or whatever, but it's like he's definitely not the average player. I've seen his PvP videos. He's not bad.
Close is what keeps me coming back. And even you can play a different class, different play style, learn a whole different role, and this is really what they're aiming for. Moving along,
they want you to play the game.
Elder Scrolls Inspire. The Elder Scrolls has captured the hearts and minds of millions of players over decades. Did Todd Howard write this? And we strive to honor the series' traditions. As an online multiplayer world presents some unique challenges, constraints, and opportunities. But fans of the series should feel a sense of familiarity within our character and combat experience. The lore and mechanics from previous game should serve as an inspiration and, when possible, a foundation for ESO combat. Health, magic, and stamina as attributes. Class selection does not define or constrain role. Skill lines are discovered and leveled up by using them. Many skills are staples from previous test games: Werewolf, Heavy Armor, Mage's Guild, etc. Moving on a little further, over the course of ESO's development, we've used these values as our guiding principle along with feedback from the community and hard data metrics. Outside of some outstanding combat bugs, we believe taking all these into account has gotten combat in a better place. where ESO is more enjoyable for the variety of playstyles.
They need to fix their fucking servers though. Add at least 2 more US servers. I know it's like, it sucks because like we don't have the player base, but a lot of times you also don't have the player base because of the fucking lag, bro. I cannot play ESO when like my fucking ping just jumps from 30 to 900 for a few seconds during a BG. It just takes me out of the game. Like, yeah, fuck, I'm done, right? Even if it's just a few seconds, those few seconds is like me quitting the game.
Much of the work we've done over the past few years, such as updating the champion point system and the hybridization work, has vastly improved build options, gameplay variety, and build equality, I disagree with, which supports several of our values. We know it hasn't always been easy, and we sincerely appreciate everyone giving their feedback and spending their time in Tamriel over the years. Keep an eye out next month for an overview of what to expect in Update 37 as it relates to combat. Again, thank you all for your continued passion and enjoyment of the Elder Scrolls Online. We'll see you on the field. So they kind of encapsulate what they've been working on the past few years. What they left out, and I think is the disappointing piece, if any, for me is, where are we on this path and what is coming forward? Now, obviously, Update 37, they're going to talk about it, but I'd like to see a big overall timeline, like, hey, we've been working on this for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
We got 3 more years to go. We got 1 more patch to go, or we think it's pretty much finalized and we're just going to do some balancing. They also talk about build equality, and I would disagree with this strongly. I think you're very incentivized to use medium armor, dual wield, and 2A, specifically in PvE as a DPS. Healers and tanks, you're pretty much incentivized to use the exact same weapon types in a few different gear sets. You do have some combinations and flexibility. I think PvP, you get a little bit more options. Now, you'll still see a lot of people using dual wield,
whatever the meta is,
and so forth, but it's really given you big incentives because the math behind the passives and the weapon skill lines and the armor skill lines, along with the gear choice options, means that you're really heavily favored to do one thing or another. Now, I will say the counter argument that is, if you're not looking for the mid-max approach or being the best player
then
ever,
you're fine.
These hybridization changes have opened up the game to you a lot. So much less punishing if you take the wrong skill, the wrong morph. And when I say wrong, what I meant was, traditionally, if you stack magic, you would never use a stamina skill. Well, now it scales effectively based on whatever is highest. So that way you can free up and mix and match some of these skills.
That is really cool.
Now, to play at the high level, though, you're really pigeonholed into one thing. Also, with the class balancing, you get a lot of classes. But here's the thing.
You don't need to play at the highest level. As far as, like, I remember when I was playing, there was, like, you didn't need to min-max. There was no content, like a Mythic Plus or whatever challenge that, like, you need to do that. You have certain stuff. One second. Have certain stuff that, like, yeah, with this build would be easier, like the solo challenges and stuff like that, but that's, you can do it with like a lot of different builds, right? It's as long as you're good at the build and understand what the mechanics are, you can usually like find a way to get around like the arenas and all that stuff. But as far as like PvE content, like actual like group content, you know, it's like you can make a mistake as a healer with your skills, but as far as DPS goes, I mean, any build really worked. Like when I was playing, like all the veteran trials were not like, they were hard, sure, but they weren't like mythic raid difficulty, you know, where you really need to like get your shit together. Like they're still hard. Yeah, they're harder than normal raid. I would say the veteran trials were probably somewhere around between heroic or like end of heroic raid difficulty, or maybe like in between heroic and maybe like beginning tier of like mythic raid. Like it wasn't that fucking difficult most of the time. The mechanics are very visible. You're not overloaded with mechanics because they do have the PS players that do not have add-ons and shit. In the regular ESO, you have a ton of add-ons you can use. So the game just becomes a whole lot easier in comparison.
Where their main spamble becomes less effective. And that's what really eliminates the class identity. When you're using Silver Shard as a Nightblade, it doesn't feel very fun. When you're using Silver Shards or Rapid Strike as a Templar, you don't feel like a Templar. Using Molten Whip on a Dragon Knight feels fun. And that's why the class identity in those specific classes, maybe even a Necro with Scythe or something, really makes those classes way more fun for me to play than something like a Templar, where I'm pretty much forced and optimized to play one specific way that feels clunky and goofy. Now, is this a perfect post? Does it solve everything and everything's rainbows and sunshine and Elder Scrolls Online?
Still
There's
a
no
connection
problems. No, look, we got tons of bugs. PvP hasn't got any attention. The servers are still a mess. Yep. A lot of things are going on negatively.
Dude, I honestly think if they fix the servers, they fix like 75% of their issues. Servers are the worst part.
And I think some of the hybridization change.
Again, it's not even that bad for me if I have just like a couple seconds of like 900 pings. Yeah, whatever. It's not a big deal. But some people have a worse connection than me that live in the US or Canada and they cannot play it, right? It's like their regular ping is 300 because the fucking servers are in California or some shit.
Changes were really good. I'm glad they actually got out in front of something. What I would like to see more is ESO Live addressing some of the core bad issues that are going on in the game, so someone like me, a content creator and a streamer, doesn't have to address it for the rest of the audience. Good step in the right direction, but I need more and more consistency, more sharing of the vision and where we're going in the future to buy in 100%. Hope you got something out of this video. Link in description below. Come watch me live on twitch.tv/DeltiasGaming, where my mom claims I'm the best streamer alive. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. #1 supporter. It is what it is. You know, your mom should be your #1 supporter. Dad should be the second one if he didn't leave when he went to get the milk. Such a bad joke. All right, yeah, that's the video. Yeah, Deltia again, decent take. Yeah, in my opinion, make combat less clunky, fix the servers. Most of the issues are gone. Like the balance and stuff. I mean, look, yes, the game is not balanced, but I swear I had way more fun playing ESO with 4 of my buddies doing BGs when it wasn't balanced for shit than I had in playing fucking World of Warcraft in the and I only played with them for like a month or two. I played for a while, then they joined, we played together for a bit. I had way more fun in ESO for that 1 month than I had for the last 14 years of World of Warcraft. It's just because like World of Warcraft PvP in my opinion is like the worst fucking iteration of PvP in any MMORPG ever. It's just so bad. Well, probably not ever. I'm pretty sure like EverQuest was worse. But like I mean like since WoW released, any MMORPG that came out, their PvP iteration was usually better than WoW. And WoW hasn't fixed their issues. But yeah, anyways, that's the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!